Thanks, Andrew, for the invitation and for the nice introduction, and of course for this nice conference hall. It's always asking me to bring out a toast on ICBF on this nice location. So the topic of my speech today is 2 years of experience with genomics. How well does it work? So please notice it's not asking does it work, it asks how well does it work. We all know, but it's always good to keep that in mind or to recall it. Genomics is a completely new breeding technology. Less than one bull generation, we know about it. And that means it has a high impact on the breeding schemes, not only of the AI companies, but also on the daily work of the farmers. And we should always keep in mind that it's a difficult situation for the farmer, because the farmer has to believe. For all of us, it's difficult to believe, and for farmers especially. Because what do I mean with farmers have to believe? There is no historical experience, I call it here. It means from our traditional system, genetic evaluations from the AI testing schemes, we have more than 50 years of experience. Everybody of us, every farmer has experienced what it means, how reliable besides the reliability figures, how reliable a bull is having 100 daughters in his proof. We have a lot of experience, a public validation, I have called it here. But we don't have that for genomics. And for the first time, animal proofs are not any longer based on their own or the daughter performance. It means there is no individual measures in the traits we are looking for, like kilograms of milk, behind this genomic proof. It's just some DNA sample. And nobody, no farmer, has seen any animals with performance yet from genomic bulls. So that is a completely different thing, and it's hard for farmers to believe in such a system. So I think comprehensible validation is essential. So a validation that everybody, especially the farmer, can follow and then make him believe. So that leads me to validation of genomics. And the first set of validations, of course, I can say it's a scientific validation. It is everything that we should do, and I hope we all have done that before we introduce the genomics officially. And this is, in brief words, we reduce our reference population and validate the examples that we get on these bulls we have before excluded and we have already daughter proofs from. But this has some problems, because especially if the reference populations are not very big, you end up with unreliable or difficult results, because either you exclude too many bulls and then you reduce your reference population and it's not reflecting anymore what you do in practice, or you exclude too small number of bulls and then your validation results may be any results but not reflecting the reality. But hopefully we all have done, where is this pointer? We have all done this on the national base before we have introduced the genomics officially. I think everybody has done, but the question is still what minimum figures you have applied before you have released this. And very often it's not documented, at least not for all the traits. But also this kind of validation is done on international base, and we all know this ICAR or Interbull GEBV test. Currently 21 country times breed combinations, the national systems are validated, and that is very important. 12 already since August 2010 when this test was introduced. That means 12 populations or countries have experience for more than 1.5 years. And they are able to do this second kind of validation I'm talking about here today. And I call it the validation in practice. It is, what are we doing? We compare the earlier published pure genomic proofs with the later published daughter proofs. And I underlined published 2 times because that everybody can follow up. You just take old books or old CDs and look what were the published genomics at time and compare it with the today's daughter proofs. And the advantage of that is reality. That is not theory, that is reality. But also this holds in some disadvantages. The first is it needs some time, so you can only do this, let's say after 1 year you have introduced the genomics. And the second thing, it needs a lot of time for late occurring or low heritable traits. And also one disadvantage is because it's still a quite new technology, we change our models time by time still. We are doing still technical progress. And all this comparing includes not only the additional information of the daughters, but also the changes we have done in model. But nevertheless, this is reality, and it's much easier to convince farmers with validation from this type than from that type, I believe. So the results I present here is coming from the German Holstein genomics. Genomics in Germany for Holsteins were officially introduced in August 2010, so more than 1.5 years ago, based on the Eurogenomic reference population. That time in 2010, it was about 16,000 bulls. Now we have reached 23,000 bulls with more than 6,500 bulls proven in Germany. And this is the reliabilities that we achieve for young bulls with that. The GEBVs from more than 70% for production in somatic cell count down to 50% for the low heritable traits. In this column you see, I call it daughter equivalent. That is what in former times, how many information from how many daughters a traditional proven bull should have in his official EBV to reach the same reliability. And you can see, absolutely, we have the highest reliability, of course, for somatic cell count and production, but relatively compared to a former test with 100 daughters, relatively, genomics perform best, at least on German base, for longevity, so for the low heritable plus late occurring traits. Anyhow, looking at these reliabilities, comparing to the very big, huge reference population that we have, sounds not very spectacular, but we should always keep in mind, we think these are realistic reliabilities, and up to now there's no international harmonization how to calculate reliabilities for GEBV, and there's some difference, and very carefully I expressed here, sometimes I'm a little bit astonished what is the relationship between true quality of the reference population and the reliabilities these people publish. Anyhow, we believe that the German reliabilities are realistic, and I think that we can also see from the following slides. What I have done, this validation in practice, I have followed up the first group of bulls coming in with daughter proofs after official release of genomics in end of 2010. But what I did is I didn't compare the genomics with the first daughter proofs they have, because that was still based on very few information of daughters, but I have followed them up to the most recent evaluation now in April, and that means this group of bulls have now their first daughter proof, or their daughters, all the test daughters are in, and the daughters are now in second lactation. Okay, and that is what we achieve. The scale is, I have transferred it from our relative scale, what we have, to a 0-1 scale, meaning an average of a 0 and a genetic standard deviation of 1. I think so everybody can easily understand. And what you can see, if we compare these two columns, then I have to go even to the second digit to find the differences. So to summarize it in one sentence, the German Holstein genomics perfectly proved as a group, that is very important, as a group, 199 bulls. Because that tells you just a part of the story, because nobody is breeding with a group of 200 bulls, and even with these unselected bulls. We are breeding with the top bulls. So we have to have a close look to see the whole story at the deviations of the individual bulls from their former genomic proofs. And that's now in the next slides. What you can see here is just, the first one is on production index RZM for milk. You have here the scale, here is the former genomic, the earlier published genomic proof. The whole range from -2 to +3 standard deviation, because this were unselected bulls. We didn't have genomics when these bulls were selected for AI. And so the average is not far away from our base. Of course, that is why we are close to 0 in average. And you find here the same scale, -2 to +3 for the daughter proofs from April now. And then we can draw a diagonal, and all the dots, these are 199 dots. The one who wants to count, he can do that. 199 dots, and all the dots representing each one bull that are exactly on the diagonal. This is a bull that has exactly the same daughter proof today with 100 daughters than he had a pure genomic proof before. And of course the bulls below the diagonal, these are bulls that dropped when the daughter information came in. And on the other side, the bulls above the diagonal, these are the bulls that went up when the daughter information came in. And that is what you can see is there are as many dots above the diagonal than below the diagonal, and that is what I showed you before. That is in average, they have performed perfectly. But you can see that there is deviation. And in average, the bulls deviate 0.6 standard deviation. But on the other hand, that means, in theory, more than 95% of the bulls should be within the range of plus minus 1 standard deviation, and that is, you can see from the figure very easily. But once again, we are not breeding with 200 bulls and even not with the best 50%. But what we are doing, we are breeding with very optimistic, I say here, with 10%. In reality, it's 5%. And when we are going to genomics in the future, we are not talking anymore about plus 2 or plus 2.5 standard deviation. We are talking about 3, 4, 5 standard deviations. So I think very, very important is not only to look at the whole group of bulls, but also to look at the top bulls, whether these bulls are biased or whether they have fulfilled their promises. And you see here the top 10%, 20 dots, and you see almost they have done the same, at least on the German scale. They have as many bulls going up and going down, so these bulls have really proven to be unbiased, even the high genomics, and even based on 114 daughters in average, giving a reliability of 93%. Going then to the next slide, this is confirmation, and you see a very, very similar picture. Once again, in average, there was almost 0, so it means as many dots above than below the diagonal, and once again, the top 10% of the bulls are also unbiased. There is some more dots below the diagonal, but there is, in average, very good fulfilled also for the top bulls. Now we are talking about, because not all daughters are classified, from this 114 daughters in average, there were 60 daughters classified, giving a reliability of 81% on this daughter-based GEBVs. Then going to somatic cell score, and you see here, and you saw that already from the first introduction slide, on German base at least, somatic cell score is our nice trait. Their genomics works really best, and you can see that on this scale. Even so, we have 114 daughters included because we have somatic cell score from all the tests with a reliability of more than 85%. You see, deviation is very small. So really, on somatic cell counts, it works almost perfect, and of course also for the top 10% of the bulls. And then going to the first low reliable trait, this is daughter fertility. And the daughter fertility index, you see, in first instance, you could think, oh, for daughter fertility, even it works more perfect. But we should see here, even though the information from 100 daughters is included, we are still at a combined proof with a reliability of less than 50%. So there's an autocorrelation in that, because still the genomics have more than 50% within this published daughter GEBV. But this is also reality, and also we should focus for the future. We will never see, once again, a pure daughter proof, because it will always be, because of the low heritability, we will always see a strong influence and autocorrelation of the genomics in the published proof. And then going to longevity, the latest occurring trait, and there you see now for the first time after 1 year, the daughters are all in. We have really culling information from the first daughters culled or survival rates from the daughters still alive, but we are still on 56% of reliability only, and so also this picture is nice, and it's also unbiased in the top, that is very important, but it does not reflect the final deviation of the bulls for longevity, because you never get that from the test period with 100 daughters. Okay, summing up, even though it's not a trait in genomics directly, for total merit index, you see the same picture like you expect from all this. There is some of the negative deviations that sum up for some individual bulls, so you have a little bit more spread, but at the end, you have also an average deviation of 0.6 of a standard deviation, so 95% of the bulls are within the range of plus minus 1.5 standard deviation. So we can summarize that for the German genomics, the practical validation turned out very positive, so the bulls were not biased, even the high genomic proven bulls were not overestimated, and but remember also the slide that there are 12 populations that have more than 1.5 year of experience with genomics. So there were 11 other populations that could very easily do this very simple kind of validation. And sometimes I ask myself why I don't see that kind of validation, because to our feeling it's very important for ourselves, but especially for the farmer to convince them. So there's really a question, why not more countries publish this kind of practical validation that has already more than 1 year of experience. Okay, and then we can conclude, if these genomics are really fully comparable to the daughter proofs we are used to work with since more than 50 years, then also the selection can and should be done across young and daughter proven bulls without looking whether is it a daughter proven or the genomic proof, but just look on the quality of the bull, of the figures. And then if you do so, young bulls should take a very big market share, because the young bulls are not only much higher for total merit, but for me even more important is that if I look really into the top list of the offered bulls, that the offered genomic bulls are much more complete compared to the daughter-proven bulls. Because a daughter proof, to have a daughter proof has cost such a lot of money and has such a long time, and then the bull comes out with being good in 5 or 6 traits and being negative, very negative in the 7th or 8th traits, you still offer him because you don't have another one. But with genomics, AIs are very seldom forced to take this kind of compromise. So for me, even the bigger difference between daughter-proven and genomic bulls in the top is the more complete bulls compared to the average total merit. And here, as an example, the 2 most sold Holstein and Red Holstein bulls in Germany the last year. So, but if then selection can be done and should be done across the 2 groups of bulls, then they should also take a high market share, and the farmer should and can believe in genomics. And therefore, the validation of this genomics in practice play a very, very important role. And we can see that on the development of the use of young bulls in Germany. Here, just listed per month. And we introduced the genomics officially in August 2010. And what you can see is the first year after official introduction, nothing happened. So we were at this, more or less at the same percentage of use of young bulls like we were with test bulls before, even though there were officially no test bulls existing anymore. And only after we have published the first validation results, and they become more and more believable with every new run when more daughters were added into this first group of bulls, then the farmers more and more believed in that genomics, and that they really work and are not overestimated. And we can see, since we published this kind, very intensively published and communicated this kind of practical validation, that now the use of young bulls, different to some other countries, now they increase, and currently we are above 35%, nearing 40% for Holsteins in all Germany. So thank you very much for your attention, and please, Andrew, allow me, because we are the host in Germany for the next ICAR, just to give you to invite you already to Berlin in 2014. Thank you very much.